This is Who Are the Real Jews analysis, the Real Jews analysis, part 2. I don't expect it to be long. I just got cut short. I ran out of time on my first video of this. But as I speak, I may run into more analysis that I had set to the side. But to review, because I ran out of time and didn't get to hit my main points, I went to explanations. But to review and summarize where I was, the real Jews are the slaves in Egypt. One of the most clear paths to see who the real Jews are, summary-wise, are the slaves who escaped Egypt that Moses in the Bible led out of Egypt. And so they traveled into Israel and settled in Israel. And just to preface, we're not going into who are the Jews before that. Maybe the whole world were Jews, or maybe because before the flood. Not sure about that, but prior to the Tower of Babel, Noah's family, they were all Jews, probably. I mean, you could look at that. They were possibly, everybody was Jews. Shem, Ham, and Japheth were Noah's sons, and they all spoke the same language at the time before the Tower of Babel, when God changed language. So they had built a tower to heaven, tried to build a tower to heaven when they all spoke the same language. They were the only people on earth. That is pretty well proven. It was a worldwide flood, so they were the only people on earth. But we're presuming that they were the only people on earth, all spoke one language, and used their unity to try to think they can build a tower to heaven instead of being reliant on God's power to get to heaven. And so God did not like that. He wanted everybody to know, you are dependent. I'm the only one that can get you into heaven. I'm the only one that has the power to get you to heaven. And that's not him trying to stop them from going to heaven. It's him letting them know, you can't do it without me. Because they were going to try and fail. They weren't going to make it to heaven. No matter how many times we try with a spaceship or anything else, we can't get to heaven. So nowadays, we know that now because we have spaceships. It's really even more obvious we can't get to heaven on our own power because of spaceships. That helped us know, but he didn't want us trying to do it that way. But some people are trying to decide what creation was, that it was different than what the Bible says. They're trying to use that to do that, and he's not happy with that, I'm sure. But he gave us the Bible, and he gave us certain examples in the Bible where he destroyed the whole earth. He doesn't have to do that again until it's time to end the world for good, to have the rapture, right? Rapture is when he takes Christians to heaven. So I'm getting on a sidetrack here again. But so I could presume, this is what I said I wasn't going to talk about, but I could assume or presume, probably likely, that everybody was considered a Jew before the language change. And so then God changed language and divided the earth. But even before the flood, though, there may have been divisions. But after the flood, Noah apparently was Jew, right? He's a Jew. And so his sons were Jews, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And their families were Jews. Whether they were married, whether his wives were all Jews before they got married or not, they married into the Jewish family, right? So that's the other part. It is possible that from my studies, it doesn't show me, but I do not see any evidence that blacks were the real Jews. And it doesn't talk about whites being the real Jews. It doesn't talk about anybody being the real Jews. The real Jews all spoke the same language before the Tower of Babel. And after the Tower of Babel, did they get rid of the original language? That's possible, even. Maybe possible. But maybe the Jews are the ones that kept the same language, but they still moved. They migrated back to Israel. Okay, so Moses being the Israelites being in slavery to the Egyptians during Moses' time was after that Tower of Babel. So they had already been established as Israelites living in Israel. And so you have Moses was adopted, and he was because the Pharaoh of Egypt had tried to kill all the firstborn, okay, of of the slaves, the Israelite slaves. At one point, and Moses was a baby, and his mother hid him in the river in a basket so he wouldn't be killed. And the Pharaoh's daughter found the basket, and they adopted Moses. Okay, I don't know if she told the truth or if that's a Hollywood version or if that's a movie version or the biblical version. I forget. So I don't, but the movie version shows that she kept that a secret from the Pharaoh. And so he was able to grow up without being killed and all. And they didn't know he was adopted, some people, according to the movie version. And that might be the biblically accurate, sorry. But, so Moses was a Jew, but adopted. And he ends up finding God later and finding out that his real mother was Jew and all that. And so he flees to Ethiopia after killing an Egyptian who was beating on a slave. So he was in self-defense, killed an Egyptian who was beating on a slave. And I don't know if it's considered self-defense all the way because maybe he overpowered him, didn't have to kill him. Or maybe he had to because that Egyptian probably tried to arrest him or something. Not arrest him, but maybe had started fighting him back or whatever. And so I don't know how that happened. People act like he just outright murdered him, but the guy was beating on a slave. He fought him off the slave, and he ended up dying. Okay, so I don't know if it gives us the details of that. It could have been a self-defense killing, or they could claim it's murder. But either way, he was defending somebody who was being assaulted. All right, so either way, he fled. He ended up running, leaving Egypt and fleeing to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is where Moses met his wife. Some people say that his wife was not black and not really from Ethiopia, that she had crossed the Red Sea, her family crossed the Red Sea from Saudi Arabia and moved there, but I haven't seen that proof of that yet. I'm not saying it's not there. I haven't taken a ton of time to study that. But if she lives in Ethiopia, she was probably black, because my view of where black folks came from is below the Sahara Desert. When they're part of Noah's family, who was Jewish. Yeah, everybody was Jewish from that standpoint. But the Jews, the biblical Jews, were the ones that lived in Israel after Moses' time, about Moses' time and all that. When they moved to Israel, even before Moses, they were in Israel. And then they found the promised land in Israel. And I want to restudy how they traveled through there and everything. And so they lived in Israel. And so what God did, from what I can best see, is he kept the Jews and Gentiles separate for the sake of protecting the writings of the Bible and keeping it accurate, right? And for following the lineage, so-and-so begat so-and-so, following the lineage all the way to Christ. And so once Christ came and rose from the dead in the book of Acts, God allowed Jews and Gentiles to mix because Jesus' work was finished. The writings of the Bible were protected. They were finished, basically. As far as I know, I don't know if all of the New Testament was finished, like Paul's writings. I don't know all the timing of that, but generally, Christ's work was finished. Everything was recorded up until Christ and his birth, burial, and resurrection, and ascension. So all that had happened, and then God allows Jews and Gentiles to mix. So I think he was protecting the writing of the Bible. That's part of it. And so he calls them the chosen people because that's where Christ, the record of Christ was kept. It was kept authentically. It was protected. And if you look at it, it doesn't have inaccuracies. It shows the prophecy of it foretold Christ coming, and then if Christ came, and he fulfilled the prophecies that were written thousands of years before, a few thousand years before, right? And so it's pretty hard to do that and prove it, and somebody can't just make that stuff up, So, I could look at it like Jews and Gentiles. Okay, not Jews and Gentiles, but so we make a bigger difference out of Jews and other people than there should be. Because if you're a Christian, if you become a Christian and you accept Christ, then spiritually speaking, you're kind of like a Jew. You're Judaism. The original Judaism believed in the prophecy of Christ. Okay, there may still be Judists today who accepted that Christ who came was, in fact, the Messiah. But there is a branch of Judaism today, and there's a big one, and it was prophesied to come, that there's going to be a big branch of Judaism and Jews who reject that Christ was the Messiah, and indeed the prophesied Messiah. And so they are basically antichrist. So there's a lot of Jews in Judaism who are antichrist, but I think there's still the side of Judaism, which is now called Christianity. So I guess some of them may still go by the word Judaism, but Christianity was first called Christians in Antioch. People were first called Christians in Antioch in the New Testament, and I guess that's named after Christ. I don't know what the Hebrew or Greek wording of that is. I haven't seen that study, but it's just a different language is all. We call him Jesus Christ in English, and that's not a big deal. He's the same person. That's just an English term for it, right? And whether you think it's not accurate because Joshua is more accurate, that's the term that we're used to. It's the term that we translated it to. Somebody translated it to back when we learned the English. It's the same person that's talking about. It's not a big deal. It's like somebody calling me Brainstorming Bob instead of Bob, or Brainstorming Bob instead of Reality Harmonizer Bob, or Brainstorming Bob instead of Sense Chaser Bob, Brainstorming Bob instead of I'm still Bob. All right, it's no big deal. They make a big deal about the name. We know this name is an English way of referring to the same person as somebody who might say it in the Greek or whatever. It's not a big deal. Same person, different language. All right, they really act like that's a disqualification or something. It doesn't make sense to me. But they somehow, that's bullyishness. That's people bullying folks and trying to silence people and saying, "No, you can't say this," and they're arguing about nothing really on that. They try to make themselves sound so intellectual because they know another language. Big deal. It's no big deal that you know two languages. If you're going to use, and you know how to twist them three different ways too. So what matters is you should be honest. All right, you should be honest. You're being dishonest when you play those games. All right, and you think you can get away with it just because you know more than one language. So anyhow, you want to validate one language as being superior to another language. There's no language that's superior to another language, by the way. They're all, you can lie in any language. You could tell the truth in any language. You can be wrong in any language by accident, or you can on purpose, which would be a lie if you did it on purpose. So anybody can be wrong or right in any language. But right and wrong is no different. A truth and a lie is no different in any language. The real truth is the real truth, no matter what language, how you say it, as long as you say it in words that describe the real truth accurately, doesn't matter what language it's in. It's still the same thing. Gravity is gravity, no matter what language you speak it in. Anyway, I don't mean to get stuck on that. So let me get back to my points here, the main points. So I got lost a little bit here. Let me get back on track. Where was I? Let me pause a second. I'm just going to go on to another point. In a way, everybody is a Jew. From Adam and Eve, if Adam and Eve were Jew. So I don't know 100% that they were called Jew at that time, but whoever they started calling Jews first, and this may be findable real easy, but I haven't looked at it specifically, haven't researched it, but I just happen to know a lot of Bible, but I can connect dots here and there. It's a lot quicker this way, right? But Jews, I don't know when they were first called Jews. Was it when they were Israelites? They were being called them Israelites, really. So I hadn't thought of that part. But the Israelites became the Jews that escaped from Egypt, right? They may have already been calling them Jews, but was Noah called a Jew, is my point. Were Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth named as Jews? Maybe not until after the Tower of Babel, and I did say that some of that earlier, but I have a new point here, and that is that in a sense, see, Jesus was Jew, and he represents dying for all people, right? Of one human race, created from Adam and Eve, whom he created. And Christ is the second Adam. He's considered the second Adam. But the perfect Adam, the supernatural, fully God and fully man in the flesh, right? So if we trust in him and we become all part of his family, then in a sense we're all connected to Jews, the one human race. Everybody's supposed to be a Jew, I guess. But I guess the people who are connected to God are Jews. Some people may be offended by this, but I've heard it said before and maybe proven a little bit, but it's been a while since I've looked at that. But in a sense, we're all spiritually Jews if you believe in God and Jesus. So he has adopted us into his family, if you want to call that a Jewish family. But it's really, we're just adopted into God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit's family, along with other believers, bottom line. And I don't think they just want to refer to that as Jew or Gentile or anything. But we could be referred to as Jews once you're adopted into that family, right? So, so now I'll get right back to Moses moved to Ethiopia for a while, and that's where he met his wife. Now, if she was black, Ethiopians are black. And I explained in my first video that I don't really got to where I was explaining I don't talk black and white on this. I talk dark skin and light skin because we're all brown, right? White people are beige. They're not white. Black people are brown to dark brown, not white. Brown and beige are the same general colors. It's just light beige is very light brown, and then if you get dark enough where some people want to argue that's black, not brown. No, it's brown. It's very dark brown. It's kind of like arguing when you see a dark blue navy suit and you can't tell if it's black or dark or blue because it's so dark, but it's really still navy blue. The darkest black person you see is not black. They're still brown. They're very dark brown. All right. So we're all brown. And I've had people that want to argue that with me. I've had black folks want to argue it with me. They say, no, they're black. And how dare you? They don't want to be named in the same race. They don't want to admit we're the same race. Black and white people are all of the same race. But the fact is, so I'll just briefly state that, people's skin turned darker, it appears. I've heard it through some scientific explanations a long time ago. I can't remember where I heard that, but I agreed with it. It made sense to me. I already thought maybe that people turned darker by living near the equator for many years. But what I had heard from the scientists' view is that that some of the plants there have more vitamin D to help protect their skin from the sun. Vitamin D darkens your skin. All right, it gives you more melanin, darkens your skin. As far as I know, that's how it works. But so if you're living there a few thousand years, then you'll get darker. So I've thought about that. So the person in Ethiopia, they had not been there 1,000 years yet. And so they might not have been that dark yet. And so I said in my first video, it's not likely that people turned from being dark skinned to light skin. It's more likely that people turned from being light skinned to darker skin, because once you build a gene and you pass it down over a few thousand years of having darker skin, the vitamin D, the melanin, the makeup, you pretty much stay dark. Your kids are going to be dark, but your gene has just, your DNA is built towards that because your ancestors lived near the equator for so many years. So, but at the time of Moses, I don't know if they had time yet for their skin to darken that much. And dark skin has less blemishes than light skin. So people who are light skinned try to go get a tan at the beach because we look, oh, you got a nice, healthy looking tan, So not to slam light skinned people, which I am one of those, but the darker skin has fewer blemishes. All right. So beauty's not, and I said this in the first video, beauty's not all in the skin. It's in your smile. If you're a mean person, you can have some cute features, and you're always frowning, you're mean. A lot of people aren't going to see that cuteness to you. All right. But mainly you just want that for your own mate, right? Everybody should have their own husband and wife. That's what the Bible says, to avoid fornication. Okay. So there's nothing wrong. People act like it's sick to be attracted to people and all that. It's not. God created it. Is God's creation sick? No. There's things gross about intimacy, spit, bad breath, and all that kind of stuff. And you can make it gross if you want, but there's also hormones, and there's cuteness and attractions to people, and emotional attractions and all those kind of things. And so God created sex, right? So it's for procreation, to have more babies, be fruitful and multiply within the realms of marriage. And, that's the way it's supposed to happen. And it is for enjoyment and romance within marriage. So it's really not fun without romance, though, kind of the sexuality. But with the romance, you build a chemistry, and there's time to be more intimate, and it's not something to do all the time and to be a nympho about, right? So that's a quick psychology lesson for you, because we have it so messed up today. We demonize people. We demonize men for being attracted to women. And they do all that for population control, women's power or whatever, because it's easy to give women power in a psychological way to demean men and all that kind of stuff, because women the Bible says to be nice to women, basically. And it says to, give yourself to women if you're married, like Christ gave himself to the church. So they twist all that and they twist it in a way as to make women the boss when they're not supposed to be just a boss and all that. I think, even though the man's the head of the house or the spiritual leader and all that, it doesn't mean that to an extreme either. I think Eve was created to be Adam's helpmeet. You're supposed to help each other, right? To summarize it. But obviously it is easier for men to throw hay bales than it is for women, for the most part. Even the weakest of men, usually not the weakest maybe, but the average man can do work with hay bales better than a woman without injuries as much. But anybody will get injured doing that. They can be. But anyway, so those things are real. Man can't breastfeed the baby, so it makes sense that a woman's around the baby more. And then she ends up, that's a big job. I mean, so it can be hard for them to go to work. We got ways to do it today and to get by with it, when we got milk bottles and everything else, right? Pacifiers. But so it's not just a stereotype to put a man and a woman in a different job, and it's not hate, and it's none of that stuff that the Democrats used to teach to divide us anyway. But it also, but they're not all the way wrong, because husbands and wives can get caught up in stereotyping those things too, and then and really lust, in a sense, of the man being powerful and the woman being the weak vessel. But then they can also lust after making the woman playing the victim all the time, right? And being manipulative. And then because she's, cute and sweet, she can manipulate into doing stuff and taking care of her and open all doors for her all the time, those kind of things. And demonizing it if you don't. And then they can switch it and say, what do you open the door for me for? But then they want you to open the doors over and over. And when you need to hurry and get to where you got to go, and you got other jobs to do besides opening a door for the woman, right? That can get that bad. That's just the human mind has no end to twisting things and wasting time and stuff like that to gain a little power, a little affection. That's too much pleasurable affection that's not necessary, because you need to love. Don't be a lover of pleasure more than a lover of God. And so all those things, in a sense, those are ways of lusting, just those little things without doing the sex and everything else, but having those little power trips that men and women can both do different ways, right? So those are forms of lust, and not giving your time to the Lord, and being more orderly and giving time to the Lord. So it's just endless. Even the way I've seen Republicans, I don't mean to be off the subject very long here. I've seen Republicans get off and get tired of talking. I don't want to hear about politics or anything. They're tired of it. Just like the Democrats are like, I'm tired of hearing about it. I don't want to talk about it. And somebody has to talk about it and stay on top of the chess game, because it's a chess game. There's a lot of chess game going on, and they need to do it, and people need to be able to talk about it, and they need to teach other people when they realize a trick, and they need to especially inform people about lies, especially in the Republican Party, because the Democrats are the ones always lying. They're the ones that don't love God and don't care what God thinks, and so want God out of politics. And then, so if you don't need God, then why not lie? So they're the ones that they lie all the time. They do, and on purpose. But Republicans fall for lies a lot of times. And then people who don't know much easily can fall for the lies. So the Republicans should talk about lies and defend themselves, and not be telling people, oh, I'm tired of hearing about it. Don't talk about it. It needs to be talked about so people know what to do and what's going on and how to help the country and how to help everybody, right? All right, so so don't vote the devil into office that says, we hate you, Christ. Donald Trump, whether he's telling the truth or understands Christian theology all the way or not, he may be not very understanding of it. I think he believes in God, but he should be scared about his daughter being in Judaism, if it's the wrong side of Judaism that rejects Christ. But I'm not sure what his views are on that, and I'm not sure if she's on the wrong side of Judaism, but she shouldn't reject Christianity, because Christianity was named after Christ. And so Christianity is the Old Testament Judaism. Judaism worshipped the fact that Christ was coming. They sacrificed the spotless lamb to get forgiveness, just like we do. So they believed in Jesus for forgiveness before he came. And now that he's come, we believe, and Christians believe in him for forgiveness, and we just changed the name to Christianity. But Christianity and Old Testament Judaism were the same thing, different names. All right, except that was before Christ came. Christianity's after Christ came. The modern Judaism, a lot of them don't believe Christ was him, right? That was him. They don't believe it was him. Why? It doesn't make sense, because he rose from the dead. So that he proved he was him, right? So. So who are the real Jews? Are there some black Jews, genuine black Jews? Yeah, by adoption. And even not just by adoption. There could be ways that it's not just by adoption. But are there some white Jews? Yes. There's white Jews. There's black Jews. There's Asian Jews. There's every ethnicity has some Jewish people. Right? Because some Jew married somebody from another ethnicity at some point. Guarantee you. In this big of a world, where we've learned each other's languages, I'm sure they've mixed in. And then God, after Jesus came, he allowed Jews and Gentiles to mix. But the Jews were probably of Israel back in Jesus' time were probably mostly white. Not because they didn't live near the equator. All right? And it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Christ died for everybody in the human race, right? So I'm summarizing it quick because I'm running out of time again. Still, I can't believe I couldn't get to all my other points that I wanted. I kind of caught up on the old points and reiterated the points and some summary points, but then I still have more, and I might have to do a part 3, but then I'll be doing catch up again on that, and then I'll remember where I left off, and I'll be stuck running out of time again. I have to do it under 30 minutes. And but I liked to clarify some of my points, and I'm trying to see if I can do any summary points real quick. And I can't do it that fast on saying, because people are so touchy about it and get mad about it, whether they're white or black. It doesn't matter. But when we want the truth, and the truth shows, I mean, from what I can see from it, the truth shows that most Israel was pretty much white, and Hitler knew that. But was there a change in migration? But Moses and the Israelites that escaped Egypt were white, I think, at that time. So Moses marrying the Ethiopian family, does that make her dad and sisters and cousins that lived with him at the time, does that make them Jews? Maybe you could say that. And so they may have had a lot of Jews in Ethiopia. So the ones from Ethiopia could in some ways be real Jews, and some may have moved down there to be with them. There could have been a mix of Jews. So I don't know. But as far as these people, Hebrew Israelites going around hating white people and stuff, that's not legitimate. But I have to go because it's time.